Good afternoon, everyone. We're glad to welcome you on our webinar devoted to data protection. Today, we will discover how to combat data breaches, elude fines, and reputational damage. And before we start, I would like to take 5 minutes of your time to share some organizational points and quick introduction of InfoPulse. My name is Victoria Zimenko, and I will be the host of our today's event. The content of part of our webinar will last 1 hour. And our speakers are Dmitro Sirash, Security Sub-Practice Leader at InfoPulse, and Konstantin Lasinsky, a Security Expert at InfoPulse. Please note that all participants are in a mute mode, but we welcome your questions. Please use the Q&A section. Our speakers will be happy to answer the questions during the Q&A session at the end of our webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and we will definitely share the recording and presentation materials with you, most likely during a week. If you have any additional questions after the event, please feel free to write us, and we will definitely redirect your questions to our speakers, and of course you will get the answers. For those attending our webinar for the first time, I would like to tell you a little about InfoPulse. InfoPulse is a part of the leading Nordic digital services company, Tietoevry. And it is an international provider of IT services to small, medium enterprise and Fortune 100 companies. Founded in 1991, InfoPulse has a team of over 2,000 professionals, and we are represented in 7 countries across the globe. On the next slide, you can see InfoPulse recognitions and certifications. We're one of top 100 companies in the world, according to the international organization AOP, for 6 years in a row, and we're also a certified partner of Microsoft. On the next slide, you can see some of our clients we're happy to work with. We provide them various services from the next slide, including cybersecurity. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm ready to pass the floor to the first speaker, Dmitro Sirash. Dima, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Victoria. Hello, colleagues. And today we are going to talk with you about data protection. How can it benefit your organization? We will go through a few interesting use cases, and what's interesting, data protection can even benefit you in case of ransomware attack conducted against your organization. So we will go all through these topics. We will discuss, in the end, we will discuss what's next after data protection solution in place, configure it and works. So it will, we will touch some roadmap, how to enhance your overall security based on data protection implemented already. In here, on this slide, you can see some statistics provided by Microsoft, and it's relevant for first half of 2022. On this slide, you can see that number of attacks is constantly growing. Last year, it was detected 2,500 attempts to breach companies. And what's interesting, ransomware is now, it's changing to ransomware as a service. So everyone who would like to run their ransomware campaign, they might go to specific service providers, they might pay some money and got a full bench of available tool sets to execute, to configure, to run ransomware against company. What's interesting, in most cases, when company got breached with ransomware, their data are exfiltrated to adversaries. This is very common practice, and this means that this data, it could be sold on dark web, darknet, sorry. It could be used against company by their competitors, etc., etc. So this is very sensitive topic. A part of you are getting your systems down, your services are not provided as expected. You might lose some sensitive data that might cost you even more after your environment is up and operationing well. So in here you see that regarding Microsoft statistics, 20 customers were successfully compromised. It's statistics from big customers, those customers that are enterprise, and on the right part of the slide, you can see some reasons which were cause of successful ransomware attack. On the last pillar, you can see that one of reasons is lack of information protection solutions in place. I guess this is what we are going to talk to you today. And we will try to explain why it is such important and why you should pay extra attention on this topic. On this slide, you can see our reality actually. Reality is that data, it resides on different locations, big variety of data, corporate data. It could be personal data, it could be customer data, it could be some strategic data of company, financial, etc., etc. It might be processed on lots of systems and places. We use some on-premise systems, we use some cloud services, services for collaboration like Office 365 with their variety of email system, Teams, other SharePoint and other solutions. We might use different services from other providers like Google G Suite, for example. We can use Google Drive, etc., etc. So lots of sources where data is stored, lots of sources where data is processed, and even it's processed in different forms. So data can be processed as a documents, as articles on website, as some email threads, conversation in Teams, for example, on SharePoint, etc., etc. So everything is where sensitive data might reside, might exist, and where sensitive data have to be protected. However, despite there are plenty of different solutions that are intended to protect data on some separate stages, like DLP, like user behavior analysis or user activity monitoring. All these systems and solutions, they are concentrating on small part of where data is, how data is processed or where it resides. However, there is these solutions doesn't provide complex features to make everything secure, to make everything under control. And what's important, handling and using all these solutions, it might require some additional efforts from the company, because you need to cover different threat vectors. You need to cover against different threats. You can do it with different solutions. That's why you need to pay for these solutions to use them. You need to have properly educated teams or specialists in place. interface who is capable to handle everything, to take everything under control, and what's important, to take everything under monitoring. This is quite complicated task nowadays. However, solution exists. I'm passing the word to Konstantin. Kostya, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dmitry, for your description of the problematics. And hello, colleagues. I will briefly describe how the solution might look like. So, as you saw, to solve this problem, the solution must be very well fragmented and distributed to handle different attack vectors, to handle different communications channels, and so on. So the Microsoft Purview solution is the one that can handle the information protection for such scenarios and solve those problematics that you just heard. So in the core of this solution, there are two main entities. The sensitivity information types. It's the structure that describes your information and makes it like related to some types. For example, payment card data or personal users data or different API keys and so on. So first of all, you of course analyze the data and try to discover there any of these sensitivity information types. And on top of those types, you build sensitivity labeling. So depending what information type was detected, you assign a label. It's actually pretty simple. But now regarding where these solution can be implemented to better understand what scenarios it can handle. First of all, of course, Microsoft's cloud services. So when you work with the Office 365 solutions, it doesn't matter if it is online or on premises, those policies are working very well. You can enforce those policies, you can detect the information, you can like make your user to necessarily set the sensitivity labels manually or set them automatically according to the policies. So working with files is handled. Next, what about the other information? Not only the Office documents, but just TXT files, for example. It also handled with the Endpoint DLP, where Purview is also present. So it is an endpoint agent which can like enforce the policies that you created in the Purview. It can detect how the data is transferred, how data is transformed, how user tries to manipulate with data to hide that it was like confidential and make it public and so on. So all the activity on the user endpoints will be monitored, analyzed, and tied together to prevent like exfiltration through different channels on the endpoint. Then the Defender for Cloud Apps. This solution is designed to handle the work with the different cloud services. Some years ago, how we could handle work with those cloud services. We could allow or deny. If it had like a certificate pinning, you could only see that this service is working and it is present in your infrastructure, but you couldn't handle it. With the help of Defender for Cloud Apps, you can fully handle the work with those cloud applications. You can see what's happening inside the traffic, whether the files are transferring or downloading from those solutions, which data is transferred to that solution. And of course, it has functionality from the Purview to analyze the data, the transfer data, to look for the sensitive data, to take in action the sensitivity labels, and enforce the policies. So the user, even if he doesn't have endpoint DLP, he won't be able to send the files to the Dropbox, for example, which is like not directly supported by Microsoft and its third-party company. Next, what about the on-premises services and servers that typically store thousands of millions of files, right, and serve thousands of users daily? It's like a SharePoint server, it's like file servers, and all other on-premises stuff. So the Purview has the agent for that case also. And it looks not to the server activity itself, because the server application reads and writes millions of files daily. So typically it would be very suspicious, but rather it looks which user generates that activity, and also applies the policies not to the server itself, but for each user who is working with that solution. And one of the most advanced use cases for the Purview is data governance service, which allows to govern the data, to enforce the policies, while applications, users, or external users working with your cloud solutions, such as SQL servers, such as storage accounts, and so on. So it sits in between the consumer of the data and the service itself, and applies the information protection policies to most effectively handle the potential information exfiltrations and so on. And of course, on the top of that, we have more advanced solutions. They are more advanced not because they better than previous. They are advanced because they rely to the advanced security topics, and their function is to analyze what configurations do you have in your tenant, how secure are those configurations, and whether it is enough for your tenant with that configuration to be capable to solve today's security problems, such as data exfiltration and so on. So, for example, the compliance manager, it can analyze all the configurations in your tenant according to the built-in templates or to customly created templates, or according to premium templates that are also available to be purchased in the solution itself. And as a result, you can see all the problems that you have to solve in your tenant to make more secure and to harden your environment in terms of the information protection itself. So it's very similar to the secure score, which is a very popular thing in the Azure itself, to identity secure score, right, which allows to better protect the identities. But this compliance solution is for the information protection. So it allows you to make your environment better. And EDiscovery, which allows to handle different scenarios which are tied to information search in all the tenant, in all the places. So no file will be left unseen. For example, Dmitry said that the information growth is huge for last years, so everything have to be handled. And that information is spread across different places, across endpoints, across cloud storages, from different vendors, which are accessible from user endpoints, across different attached drives, and so on. So EDiscovery allows to create a search policy that will try to find all the sensitive data in your environment and see where it is located and handle that data. So to summarize everything, on the next slide, we will see what is handled, what is covered by the Purview from the helicopter view, right? So Microsoft 365 online and on-premises solutions are fully covered. Endpoints with the Microsoft Windows and Mac OS is supported through the vendor for endpoints. And there are plugins for supported browsers, which are Edge and Chrome. Non-Microsoft cloud applications are also fully supported, and they are not limited to the online services that are typically used by users, but it is also includes storage services and cloud services such as AWS and Google Cloud. And of course, on-premises servers with millions of files and thousands of users that are connecting there every day. So let's move on to the cases. On the next slide, we can see a typical case that should be solved during the information protection process. It is the separation of duties. We all know the problem when administrators who are managing, for example, SQL server or file server, they also have access to the data itself. But it is not quite right, actually. Even according to different compliances such as PCI, DSS, and so on, administrator who is managing the server shouldn't have access to the data itself. So he must manage the server, he must manage other roles, he must grant permissions to the users, but he shouldn't have access to the data itself. But if we revoke that access, he will lose control on the table configurations, for example, or directory configurations, right? And if we revoke the access, he would lose his management capabilities, for example, or he can like assign him more extended permissions, so he will finally see the data, right? So we have to handle it in some another way. That's where data protection and Purview can help. We can create a policy that prohibits the administrator to see, to view the data, to gain access to that data on some sort of servers, on databases, and so on. So he will still be able to see the structure of the table, to see what types of columns are there, but the data itself, it will be either hidden or it will be masked for him. So he will see the encrypted data. It's very common actually case for financial institutions, for example, or for those organizations who process a lot of personal data. Moving on to the next case. And the next case is, it's also from our practice. One of our clients asked us whether we can advise them how to build the process when user asks the company to show where their personal data is stored, how it is stored, where it was transferred to, when, who accessed the data, and so on. Also, the same scenario is described by the GDPR, because each person has a right to ask how his data is processed, whom it was transferred to, and so on. When we reference to today's problems, where we have a lot of data, where we have a lot of locations where it can be stored, emails, Teams, SharePoints, and so on, yeah, it can be actually resided everywhere, and it will be pretty hard to find that data. So the Microsoft's Purview blade called EDiscovery can help with that. We can create a policy that will find the data about the particular user, summarize it, and show as a beautiful exportable dashboard that can be also exported to the PDF or Excel file and shared with the client. So he will be able to see all the data about him, how it was processed, how it is stored, and by whom it was accessed. So we think that this solution covers the use case fully. And with some automation, it also can be like enhanced to the next level. Moving on to the next use case, to the third use case. So what do we have right now? We have a lot of different standards that require the company to comply with the GDPR, with other data protection standards. For example, in European Union, there is a general document regarding data protection, and there are a lot of local documents that like require more specific or sometimes more general data protection standards and so on. So there, if to implement everything, it will be very hard for the company to comply, to monitor everything, and to implement and to make changes, right? Because the process of negotiating the changes have to pass through a lot of compliance regulations and so on. And of course, let's not forget about the company's own compliance requirements or compliance requirements from the mother company. So how it can be solved? We already mentioned the compliance manager solution. What it offers. Now we have collected there more than 300 templates that include information protection requirements from different countries, from different regions, different industries, and so on. Also, there is a possibility to create your own compliance report or compliance template that can be like implemented in your tenant. And what do you get as a result? The compliance manager would gather information about the tenant, would analyze the data, and show you the problems or misconfigurations according to the compliance. And as everything can be tied together, I mean the compliance requirements, you see only one dashboard. Of course, you can separate the data, but you see one dashboard with a single list of recommendations and ways how to solve the uncompliant configurations or concerns, right? So you have an actionable list, just take it and implement it. And your organization will be fully compliant no matter how many compliance requirements do you have right now. Of course, if they are not intercepting and stating the different ways, then you have to decide which one you would better comply to. And of course, this monitoring is constant, so it is updated regularly. You can configure how often it should be updated. So it becomes much easier to see, to understand how compliant you are today, how compliant you was yesterday, right? To see how things are changing and to see, for example, if you implemented a new solution or a new application, how things are changed after that implementation. So that's it about this use case. We can move to another use case. The ransomware that was mentioned previously. It's one of the hottest topic today. And what of the main impacts of the ransomware today? Of course, it's data encryption in the tenant and data exfiltration. So ransomware gangs not always even encrypt the data. They just try to steal the data so they can share it with the public if they don't get any ransom. That's actually a big problem for the companies because sometimes they would prefer all their information would be encrypted or even erased or destroyed rather than share it with the public. So how information protection solution can help in this scenario? If the file encryption policy and sensitivity labeling and everything is properly implemented, each file will be accessible only to a single person or to a group of users or selected persons, doesn't matter, or to the tenant, the organizational tenant as a whole. But directly opening the file without account would be impossible. It will be encrypted. So the resulting file is just encrypted container. No one can access it without the proper identity. But as we know, strong identity protection is from the basic security topics, so it must be most hardened in the environment. And if the ransomware attack is happened, if some of the security solution bypassed that attack and attackers could even steal the information from your company, they would steal the files, not the data. So they would steal encrypted containers which can't be opened by them. And even if they steal a few accounts from that company, they will open only a few files that had those identities in the permissions. So that's it. All other files are strongly encrypted and can't be accessed by the ransomware gang. So the file exfiltration happened, but no data exfiltration was happening as one of the impacts of that attack. Okay, moving on. Now, how to obtain all this beautiful functionality? I tried to gather all the main functions of the information protection and tie them to the Microsoft's licenses available today. So, of course, the most functionality is available for E5 and F5 compliance licenses, but you always can, if you don't need all the functionality, but you still want to implement strong information protection policies, you can purchase the E5 compliance license as add-on to other Microsoft's licenses. Of course, you have to think regarding which functionality is required. For example, if you need manual labeling, only the minimal licenses will be enough. But if you want to make automatical labeling with the AI capabilities, you would definitely need the maximum licenses. And of course, the endpoint DLPs, they require enterprise licenses starting from E3 or F5 compliance licenses. But sometimes, if your work is mostly online and users are prohibited storing the data on their endpoints and everything is in the cloud, and your users using only Office 365, right? And the policies prohibit to download those files, only working with them online. It will be enough for you to use the Office 365 licenses with the information protection. So they are not covering the on-premises solution, but they are fully covering the cloud solutions with the functionality such as sensitivity labeling supported with the message encryptions and so on. So this information can be used to understand on the high level which functions are necessary for you. So now we can move on. And I think back to you, Dmitry.
Yeah, Kostya, thank you. So now we are going to discuss what we need to get everything in place, a part of licenses. So everything within data protection solution implementation starts from understanding which data does company has, which data does company users do company users process, where is this data located, and all this variety of data, of information. In order to do that, you need somehow, or Purview, Microsoft Purview solution, can you provide with such tool or such functionality, which allow you to discover all data within company systems, all data within on-premise and cloud components, cloud assets. And it allows to build some sort of data map. So it will go through all data. It will provide you with insights, which data, where located, which patterns might it meet, and etc., etc. So having all this information, you can move to the next step. It's data classification. It's mostly not technical step, but rather organizational step. So you should decide within your organization, within your data owners or management, which data is really important for a company, and how is this data important actually. So for this, you might have different classifiers for the data. And such as, for example, just corporate internal data, personal data, some secret corporate data, or maybe public. So for all these different types of data, it might different policies to be applied. What does this mean? It means that if somebody tries to send public data to some partner outside of the company, it will absolutely meet corporate policies which fully allow to do that as soon as data is public by their nature. The same, you should not just understand which data you have, which how this data should be classified, but you should define some general approach for your organization. So specific metrics, how is it possible to identify such data, and how is it possible to label this data. And on this step, we go to labeling stage. This is a process intended to put specific labels on all your data assets. So if you have personal data, each piece of this personal data, like document, like email, like record on Teams or elsewhere, it should get their label as personal data. If there are some other type of data, so all these pieces of data, they should be labeled, and this allow you to define policies within system on further steps. What's important in here is that this labeling can be done manually, or it can be done automatically by some specific patterns. So if you have some data that needs specific pattern, you can search for all this data, and you can put labels for all this data in automatic mode. Also, labeling allows you to keep all data labeled within process of data generation. For example, somebody writes email or somebody writes document. Microsoft Office application, for example, it will ask which type of data is it. So is it internal data or public or private, etc., etc., and assign a relevant label for this newly created document or piece of data. On the next stage, it's project stage. You are about to deploy solution on your to your environment. It can be different types of deployment. If you use cloud-only solution, it will be just activation of specific models within your tenant, and everything is in place. However, if you use lots of on-premise devices, if you use mobile devices, servers, etc., first, what you need to do is to install a specific client to your endpoints, to your devices, that will work as a proxy for data processing. So it will track all data and all activities with data happening on your endpoint, and it will check with existing policies, with labels, if such action is allowed, should be allowed, or should be limited somehow. On this stage, everything starts from our architecture workshop, where our specialists can assist you with designing of proper solutions that will meet your specific needs. We can suggest for you the best set of licenses, more cost-efficient bunch of licenses that will fully cover your needs and your business tasks. Agent installation, solution configuration, so everything on this step is already discussed. The next important step is policy configuration. So this is where all policies that are going to be applied to your data, to your according to sensitive labels, they should be properly configured, and all limitations should be written within such policy. In here, we can limit who can process data and in which way. Is it allowed to forward this data somewhere? Is it allowed to store this data on local storage? Is it allowed to print data, to make lots of other things? For mobile devices, it's even possible to limit making screenshots from your sensitive data. So if you are about to make screenshot of your mobile device with sensitive data on the screen, system will not allow you to do that. So you will see just black screenshot without sensitive data on it. So policy configuration, it takes some time. However, and we are going to the next step. However, every time we need to test how everything works, and most probably we will find something to get fine-tuned. Why is it happens? Because all the time there are some exceptions. There are some users with very specific demands or roles. There are some specific business processes that might be missed on policy configuration stage. And all this means that we need some time to get working, to get feedback from users, which limitations do they meet, but they shouldn't be in place, etc., etc. So after collecting all this data, all the policies, they should be fine-tuned to work perfectly and to meet business operations, not to interrupt them, etc., etc. And the last step in here is supporting everything we've configured and we've put in place. It's about monitoring if solution works. It's about processing feedbacks from end users when they tell that something works not as expected. It's about making some new additional configurations because each organization, it changes roles of the people there. They changes. So The data protection system, it should be a live system that should correspond to existing business processes, to organizational structure, to roles within company, etc., etc. And considering everything changes in our world, the system should be keep updated to meet all these aspects covered within the system. However, everything not ends with Purview. So if we tell that Purview is properly configured, properly installed, and it works as expected, this is just step one in bringing your company to fully covered data security, I would say. What's important to do next is to try to configure and to use Compliance Manager as a part of Purview. Compliance Manager is going to provide you with additional recommendations, with insights about how your policy should be enhanced to meet compliance of each and every regulation that you select. For example, if you need to meet GDPR compliances or personal data, you will receive recommendations how properly personal data should be stored and should be protected within system. If you need to meet PCI DSS requirements, absolutely another types of data should be protected in another way, and you will get all these recommendations. So using Compliance Manager, it will make you much easier life, much easier process to get everything complied to all these regulations, so you can be sure that your data is protected according to each regulation that is relevant for you. And what's important in here, it's not only some geographically based regulations like United States or European Union. There are lots of regulations that are relevant for industries, or even regulations from mother company, for example. So you can easily configure them. You can educate system how to use these requirements, compliance requirements, and system will assist you with implementation of all these requirements within your environment. The next important point is implementation and integration of Microsoft Purview with Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. MCAS allows you, as already told by Konstantin, MCAS allows you to take under control all third parties cloud services, such as Google, Dropbox, Salesforce, etc., etc. So by having MCAS in place and by having MCAS integrated with Microsoft Purview, MCAS will refer to policies configured within Purview. It will check each piece of information transferred to cloud platforms of other providers, and it will apply proper policies. It will apply proper limitations to data stored outside of your Microsoft environment, outside of your tenant. This is very important. And the next step in making everything secure is to collect all logs from all these systems that we've just discussed into one SIEM system. For example, it might be Microsoft Sentinel. Why is it important? Because by having all the alerts, all the logs in one system, it is possible to detect anomalies within using of your data, user anomalies, data transfer anomalies, etc., etc. So we by applying specific logic which is available in analytical rules, system can detect and raise the red flag if something suspicious happening. So it can provide you with at least alert, sometimes with recommendations, how to handle such alert and how to handle such incident. All this before we've covered, it was about systems itself. However, overall security, it relies not only on systems, but on people who take everything under control and who is monitoring everything. And now I'm talking about security operations team. So security operations team, for sure, they need some SIEM system to be in place to have overall visibility over your environment, over your systems. However, response, fine-tuning, investigation on incidents, it's also their task. So such security operational team, they should take control over Sentinel. They should have visibility with other systems like Purview, MCAS, etc., to properly detect incidents, to properly investigate them, and respond on incidents on the earliest stage as possible, because everyone in security understands that as much early you detect incident, as much early you start handling it, the less impact it will have on your organization, on your infrastructure, on your reputation, etc., etc. So the less impact you might have in case of such incident. That's why having 24/7 SOC team in place is highly recommended in here. This team should be properly educated. This team should have proper tool sets to provide their services and their operations. And by having such team in place, by having such toolsets in place, you might be sure that your data is properly secured, that your data is safe, and you will not have breaches related at least to your data. Which might be very important for you. Actually, that's it. That's all we planned to go through with you today. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask them right now, or you can send your questions to me or to Konstantin. We are blessed to answer your questions, or if you have any insights, any thoughts, we would like to have discussion with you.
Thank you, Dmitry and Konstantin, for the presentation. That was great as usual. So the webinar is coming to the end. Thank you for your attention and see you on our upcoming events. Bye.
Thanks for the attention. Bye-bye.